वेलकम एवरीवन टू द डेली न्यूज एनालिसिस ऑफ 18th ऑफ नवंबर 2023। तो आज की इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल पहला जो है बिल्डिंग द फ्लोर द जियोपॉलिटिकल फॉलआउट ऑफ द इजराइल हमास वॉर। देन नेक्स्ट है समिट क्लास। देन इंडिया हैज ए क्रिटिकल रोल इन दुबई। देन फॉर रेस्क्यू IAF लैंडेड ए C-130J ऑन ग्राउंड डिक्लेयर्ड अनफिट फॉर द प्लेन। Japan PM raises serious concerns about military activity in talks with the sea. Bank stocks fall as RBI tightens rule. Building the floor. This week's summit meeting between US President Joe Biden and China President Xi Jinping in San Francisco is unlikely to resolve any of the major differences that plague relations between the world's two biggest powers. It has, however, offered the promise of much-needed respite for the world by stabilizing a relationship that has recently been in free fall and brought growing concern. The summit on the sidelines of APEC yielded two significant takeaways. The first involved several concrete agreements, including to restart military-to-military direct dialogue and discuss risk and safety issues involved with the artificial intelligence. The second is what both sides have described is establishing a floor to the relationship that was the goal when the two leaders last met in Bali in 2022. The Bali consensus was, however, blown away by the spy balloon incident. This time, there is cautious optimism that this attempt at stabilization has been built on more solid ground, but how long it will last remains an open question, especially with two potentially disruptive political events looming on the horizon. In January next year, Taiwan goes to the poll, and the outcomes could see a further rechecking of the tensions across the strait. On Taiwan, both sides reiterated their stance, with China cautioning against interference and the US saying it opposed any change in the status quo. Meanwhile, the US will next year go into election mode ahead of the poll in November 2024, and campaign season inevitably brings heated rhetoric on China, a longer-term concern and one that underlines the limits of this modest stabilization. Is a basic point of differences in how they see the full future of their relations. As Mr. Xi put it, the number one question was whether they were adversaries or partners. He criticized US framing of the relationship as being fundamentally competitive, saying it would lead to misinformed policymaking, misguided actions, and unwanted results, and asked it to refrain from flip-flopping and crossing the lines on issues including Taiwan and export controls. Mr. Biden, however, emphasized that the US and the China are in competition and described the immediate challenges as how to manage it responsibly. These differences aside, one crucial point of the agreement is apparent realization that high-level engagement and open channels are key in preventing competition from sliding into conflict. This offers a clear lesson to the India-China relationship as the crisis along the line of actual control enters its fourth winter. Dialogue in and of itself is not a consensus, and as the US and China have realized, building a floor when ties between major powers are at risk of free fall is the first step. Then next the geopolitical fallout of the Israel-Hamas war. One strategic shift and two tactical realignment. These were the dividing force of geopolitics in West Asia in recent years until October 7. All were interrelated. The United States, the reigning superpower of the region since the end of the Second World War, had begun shifting its strategic focus to more conventional rivals such as Russia and China, but to maintain its hold over the interest in the region, what the US sought to do was to bring two of the pillars of its regional policy, Israel and the Gulf Arabs, closer. The Abraham Accord were a result of this policy, which was rolled out by the Donald Trump administration and embraced by the US President Joe Biden, a common Jewish-Arab front in a relatively peaceful West Asia would allow the US to free up resources from the regions which it could use elsewhere. On the other side, the US deprioritization of West Asia led Gulf Arabs to make their own tactical changes in foreign policy for a more predictable and stable relationship in the region. This opened an opportunity for China, which has good ties with the countries across the Gulf, to play the role of a peacemaker. The result was the Iran-Saudi reconciliation agreement. The US response to the Saudi-Iran detente was to double down on the Abraham Accord. The Biden administration invested itself in talks between the Saudis and the Israel. It was so confident about prospect of a deal that it unveiled the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor (IMEC) proposal earlier this year, which hinged on Arab-Israel peace and sold it as an alternative to China's outreach into the region. Then came the October 7 Hamas attack on Israel, Palestine, sorry, reconciliation of Palestine. Hamas, which has been controlling Gaza since 2007, looked at these two alignments differently. For Hamas, a Sunni Islamist militant group, the coming together of Iran, a Syria theocratic republic, which also has been its pattern for years, and Saudi Arabia, a Sunni monarchy that has been wary of Hamas brand of political Islam, is a welcome development, but it saw Saudi Arabia normalizing ties with Israel, which has been occupying Palestinian territories at least since 1967, as a setback in 1978 when the Camp David agreement was reached. Egypt got the Israelis to sign the framework for the peace agreement, which became the blueprint for the Oslo process in the 1990s. Jordan signed its peace treaty with the Israel only after the first Oslo Accord was signed in 1993, but when the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco signed the Abraham Accord in 2020, Israel did not make any concession for the Palestinians. This was the clearest sign yet that Arabs, especially Gulf Arabs, were ready to de-link the Palestine question from their their engagement with Israel, which boosted Tel Aviv's efforts to localize the Palestine issue. To treat it as a mere security nuances, while continuing the occupation without consequences. When Saudi Arabia and Israel were in talks, nobody expected the Benjamin Netanyahu government, the most far-right government in Israel's history, comprising settler, extremist and ultra-orthodox Zionists, to offer consensus to the Palestinians. So understandably, one of the goals of the October 7 Hamas attack was to break the walls of the localization, regionali- re- re- sorry, re- regionalize and the Palestine issue, and thereby scuttle the Saudi-Israel peace bid. Israel's vengeful onslaught on the Gaza Strip, which followed the Hamas attack, killing at least 11,500 Palestinians, a vast majority of them women, children, and made sure that Hamas met its goal, at least for now. This way, the way Arabs see it, both the Arabs and Israel were ready to sidestep the Palestine question and chart a new course of partnership, but new regional realities emerged after October 7. The Palestine issue has now come back to the fore of the West Asian geopolitical cauldron. Second, Israel's disproportionate and indiscriminate attack on Gaza has triggered massive protest across the Arab street, mounting enormous pressure on monarch and dictators. Arab countries which witnessed violent destabilizing street protests and civil strifes just 10 years ago cannot completely turn away from the growing pan-Arab sympathy with the Palestine and the antipathy towards Israel. Third, there is always the Iran factor. Ever since the Palestine issue got regionalized, Iran has stepped up its pro-Palestine rhetoric and called for collective action against Israel, while its proxies, the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon, has launched limited attacks on Israel. Iran is trying to claim the leadership of the Islamic world, bridging the Shia-Sunni divide. This has left Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries with difficult choices. They can either ignore the anger in the Arab streets, letting Iran take up the cause and go ahead with the planned peace agreement with Israel and halt the talks and return to the original King Abdullah initiative, which called for the formation of an independent Palestine state based on the 1967 border in return for the Arab recognition of Israel. The Saudis con- convened an Islamic summit on Gaza, which saw the landmark visit by the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi to the kingdom and reiterated its call for the creation of a Palestine state based on 1967 border for peace and security in the region. In a effort, Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi crown prince, has relinked the Palestine issue with peace talks with Israel. This is a setback for both America and Israel. The US might still hope that the situation would be conducive to reboot the Abraham Accord once the dust settles. This is entirely possible, but a key challenge is that it is still not clear what Netanyahu's endgame in the Gaza. He has already signaled that Israel troops would continue to play an overall security role in the territory from where it withdrew in 2005. The US has proposed that post-war the Palestine Authority, which runs part of the West Bank with limited powers, should take over Gaza as well. But Mr. Netanyahu has shut down that proposal. So, if Israel reoccupies the territory home to 2.2 million people living in distress and misery, the current wave of violence would only be the beginning of a long spell. Regional dynamics. The Iran-Saudi reconciliation under Chinese mediation itself was a setback for US. In recent years, Arab countries has also shown an increasing hunger for autonomy. The UAE and Saudi Arabia refused to join American sanctions against Russia after the Ukraine war. Saudi Arabia continued its organization of the petroleum exporting countries OPEC plus cooperation with Moscow, defying Washington's request and diktats. China is playing an increasingly greater role in Gulf, which includes secret plans to build a military facility in UAE. The current crisis is expediting these changes in the regional dynamics, with the Saudi-Israel peace plan derailed and Iran president having visited the kingdom to discuss Israel's war on Gaza. What Washington is witnessing is the limits of the US brokered Abraham Accord and the widening scope of China brokered Iran-Saudi detente. The situation in Gaza is effective back to the 2005 days, but the geopolitical reality is entirely different from the early 2000s, when the US was a sole superpower in the region. Russia and China may not replace America in West Asia in near future, given the USA huge military presence, but the growing footprint of other great powers is offering space for better maneuverability for regional players. By trying itself deeply with Mr. Netanyahu's brutal endless war on Gaza, the Biden administration has put the US in a different position in a region that is already in a flux. The next summit classes, India will need to be at least best against Australia in the final. The World Cup caravan finally returns to Ahmedabad where it commenced its journey on October 5 this Sunday. A packed Narendra Modi Stadium will witness the summit clash between India and Australia. The host is in prime form, having notched 10 wins on the trot, including the fine victory over Doughty New Zealand in the semi-final at Mumbai. Meanwhile, Australia started on the wrong foot with two losses before winning 8 consecutive games, with Australia having won cricket's premier champions on the 5 occasions. Pat Companion, Pat Cummins and his men must live up to a hallowed legacy. Their semi-final against South Africa had the thrill associated with low-scoring humdingers at Kolkata's Eden Garden the last time India and Australia clashed in a World Cup final. It was in 2003 edition at Johannesburg in South Africa, and Ricky Ponting's men won by 125 runs. 2 decades later, Rahul Dravid, a key player involved in that iconic match, is now the Indians team coach. The former India captain will surely infuse pragmatism without toning down the adrenaline surge within the dressing room. Back then, Zahir Khan got locked in a war of words with Matthew Hayden and Adam Gilchrist lost his focus and soon the contest nestled inside the rivals' pocket. This time around, David and Captain Rohit Sharma swear by the philosophy of taking it one match at a time. World Cup final are massive sporting engagements where the best either finds extra reserves of strength or watch their legs turn into jelly if India sticks to its consistent methods executed well so far in this championship. It should start as the favorite Rohit Sharma ballistic starts Gill's poise, Virat Kohli's prolific run, and the combined yield of Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul, and Suryakumar Yadav have ensured that the rivals have no relief on the field. A bowling attack helmed by Jasprit Bumrah has prized upon the opposition top order before the spinners stopped in and strangled the order in the middle game. Kohli with 711 runs is the leading batter in the World Cup, and Mohammad Sami leads the bowler pack with 23 scalps. Still, Australia will remain a combative unit, scrapping hard, never ceding an inch, even though all its batting starts have not performed as smoothly as the Indians. Glenn Maxwell's stunning unbeatable 2-0 against Afghanistan indicated at the magic and mayhem within the Australia change room. A fine seamed attack and an effective spinner in Adam Jampa will pose a challenge which India has tackled well if it is to hold up the cup for the third time. India has a critical role in Dubai Climate Conference. Criticism that the UAE's leadership this year of the annual UN climate talks conflicted with its position as one of the world's biggest producer of oil is surprising and unfounded. A senior leader of the COP presidency told the Hindu in an interview on Friday. The 20th edition of the Conference of Parties will be held over the 2 weeks in Dubai next month. Head of the state's bureau, business delegations and climate and energy think tanks from over 190 countries converge annually for the conference to negotiate responsibility for keeping global temperature from rising above 1.5 degrees Celsius. This time, it has started a unique controversy centered on its president Sultan Al Jaber. His position as head of one of the world's largest oil companies, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, has drawn criticism primarily from the West that he would, as COP president, be less inclined to push the world away from the fossil fuel. We were quite surprised. Majid Al Suwaidi, Director General COP28, told the Hindu, "This is not the first time that the COP president comes from a fossil fuel producing country, and such criticism has never been raised before. We have for decades followed a path of development that minimized wastage. We were once an economy that relied on coal dividing that was destroyed once the Japanese invented the artificial pulse. We have always known that the development of a new technology can take away an economy based on a natural resource. We are not shy of the fact that we are an oil and gas producing country. That's something that has built our country, but we need to transition to a future economy, and we have started this many years ago. Our economy is today 70% not oil and gas. People criticized us when we built our tourism economy, when we made was the renewable energy company. We are used to criticism, but we act and deliver. Our president of UAE has asked us to celebrate the day we deliver our last barrels of oil. Practical solution. Mr. Al Suwadi said the world has to think of ways to deliver practical solutions on how to transition people in developing countries to new jobs without compromising on development. Business and economies have to know what they are getting rather than what is being taken away, and how we can protect biodiversity, the right of indigenous people, and ensure jobs for women and children in the future. He added the COP presidency role in the negotiations would be to get all countries to do more than what they have committed to, as the current trajectory suggested 43% more emissions by 2030 over 2019 levels than what is necessary to keep temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Our presidency is not about preferring one ideology to other. It is about the science we need to address the 22 gigaton billion tons of gigatons of carbon dioxide, and that is by the carbon decarbonizing while building a new economy. All of the net zero projection for 2050 do account for a limited amount of fossil fuel. We need to make sure that the mix is the right one to achieve that 1.5 degrees Celsius target. With Prime Minister Narendra Modi expected to visit Dubai for COP, Mr. Al Swadi said the conference would be the most high profile in terms of attendance. India has a critical role, and it is why it is the country we first visited and visited most in the run-up to COP28. This is the COP for the Asia, and if it works for India, it will work for many countries, he said. For a rescue, IF landed a C-130J on ground declared unfit for the plane. In a swift 5-hour operation, the Indian Air Force activated the Dharasu Advanced Landing Ground at Chinyali-Saur near Uttarkashi, about 30 km from the site where the 40 workers are trapped in an underground under construction tunnel, and deployed two C-130J Super Hercules transport aircraft to fly critical rescue equipment from New Delhi. The ground was identified as the nearest possible location for the operation. It is a short and narrow airstrip of 3,600 feet at an elevation of 3,000 feet. The runway had been declared unfit for the C-130J class of aircraft, but given the critically of the mission, it was decided to operationalize the ground. Officials said the IAF undertook three missions with C-130J transport aircraft and airlifted 27.5 tons of critical rescue equipment into this short RTC, a source said. IAF helicopter was launched prior to the final missions to assess the feasibility of operation and simultaneously two C-130J aircraft were launched to Agra and Palam to access the equipment meant to be carried. The source said the helicopter operation was planned with a C-130J pilot abroad to access obstruction and the runway condition. The helicopter made multiple approaches to ensure that the most suitable call is taken before clearing the ground for such critical operation. The source said the ground was cleared in a short period, catering for operation of a large platform, and both the aircraft were ready for quick launch as soon as it was declared fit for operation. The mission was undertaken amid the challenges of reduced visibility conditions during departure, heavy water landings at short and narrow airstrip, and offloading in constricted space. The source said while elaborating on the challenges involved, the offloading of critical materials at such remote places was itself a huge challenge for operation. The Dharasu ALG did not have specialized equipment required for offloading from C-130J aircraft. The sources said in cargo offloading, a mod ramp was created locally to avoid a delay in subsequent rescue operation. The source stated, adding that the success of the operation was a result of pinpoint executions. Then a Japan PM raises serious concerns about military activity in talks with C. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said on Thursday that he told President Xi Jinping he has serious concerns about Chinese military activity during their first direct talks in a year and slammed Beijing's ban on its seafood. Mr. Kishida said he expressed our serious concern over China's increasing military activity near Japan, including its collaboration with Russia during their meeting on the sidelines of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC forum. At the same time, I re-emphasized the extreme importance of the Taiwan Strait's peace and stability to the international community, including Japan. Mr. Kishida told Japanese television channels after the talks in the US. On the East China Sea, I expressed once again our serious concern about and urged the immediate removal of Chinese Boyos set up in Japan's EEZ, Mr. Kishida said, referring to the country's exclusive economic zone. Chinese state media reported that Mr. Xi told Mr. Kishida in the meeting in San Francisco that Japan and China must follow the trend of the times, focus on common interest and properly handle differences. Military tensions have soared in Pacific over China's action in the disputed South China Sea and its drill around the self-ruled island of Taiwan, which Beijing regards as its own territory. Chinese vessels have also increasingly ventured further into the Pacific on the seafood ban. Mr. Kishida said he strongly demanded a calm response based on the scientific evidence and the immediate removal of restriction on imports of Japan food products. Seafood ban. China banned all Japanese seafood imports after Japan began releasing treated wastewater into the Pacific Ocean from the Chicken Fukushima nuclear plant in August, with Beijing accusing Tokyo of treating the sea like a sewer. Japanese insist the discharge is safe, a view backed by the United Nations Atomic Watchdog in the International Atomic Energy Agency. Mr. Xi reiterated complaints about the wastewater release during his talks with Mr. Kishida on Thursday, Beijing said. Then as the last article है, bank stocks fall as RBI tightens the rules. Banking company stocks came under selling pressure on Friday, a day after the Reserve Bank of India increased the risk weight on consumer loans provided by the banks and NBFC by 25 percentage point to curb a build up in unsecured loans, reacting to the RBI circular, which now makes it mandatory for regulated entities to set aside higher capital for unsecured loans. The bankex of the BSE slumped 740.92 points of or 148% to 49,170.81. State Bank of India led the decline with a drop of 3.64%, followed by Axis Bank and Canada Bank, which fell 3.03% and 2.02% respectively. ICICI Bank slid 1.45%, Federal Bank said 1.4%, Bank of Baroda lost 0.91%, Kotak Bank was down 0.43%, and HDFC Bank dipped 0.22%. The Nifty Bank Index of National Stock Exchange fell 577.60 points or 131% to 4353 sorry 43,583.95, opened gap down following the RBI's announcement of tightening provision for consumer loans. The bank Nifty opened with a gap down and sustained below the 44,000 mark, said Kunal Shah, senior technical and derivatives analyst, LKP Securities. The index next support is situated at the 43,300 to 43,250 zones, serving as a crucial line of defense for the bulls. If this level holds, it could pave the way for a potential recovery toward the 44,000 mark. However, a breach of the mentioned support may intensify selling pressure, leading the index further down toward the 42,700 level. On the downside, Mr. Saha added heavyweight financial stocks saw a drop amid concerns over the sector's loan growth and profitability after the RBI tightens the rules for personal loans and credit cards, observed Abhyut Bagar, technical and derivative analyst, Stockbox. So, friend, this is all for today, and we will meet from tomorrow onwards with new news article. Okay. So, thank you and keep studying. Thanks a lot.